Chapter 3, we will begin with logic. And again, we step away from set theory, which is chapter 2 is set theory. Chapter 3, we begin with logic. But before we talk about logic, before we need to do anything related to logic, we have to know the definition and we have to know what we need to do in terms of get to the logic part. So the first thing we want to know, or the first thing that we need to define, is we have a statement. So in logic, we will have a statement. And statement, to be in short, a statement is basically a sentence. Whatever sentence you come up with that can be either be true or false at one, right? It cannot be true and false at the same time. So I can say today is Monday, and that would be my statement. Because again, I know that today is Tuesday, but if I say today is Monday, that is a statement, or in case it's a symbol statement, because it's only contain one idea, right? Yes, it's a false statement. Today is Monday is a false statement, but again, it's a statement nevertheless, okay? So basically, in short, a statement is just a sentence that can be either true or false, okay? So you can come up with any sentence that it can be true or false, and it's a statement. If you look at the camera and I say this is a red pen, then this is a false statement, right? It's a green pen. But again, in a sense, whatever sentence you come up with can be a statement, okay? And once we can define the statement, we need to negate the statement. The negation of the statement is just the opposite of the statement. So if your statement is a true statement, the negation will be a false statement. And if your statement is a false statement, then the negation will be a true statement. So in the earlier, I say today is Tuesday, which is a false statement. The negation of the false statement has to be true. Then you just say today is not, today is Monday is a false statement. And I can say today is not Monday. That will be the negation. So as you can see, typically the easiest way to construct the negation, there are two ways to construct the negation. The easiest way for now is if your statement do not have the word not, all you need to do is insert in the word not, which is I say today is Monday is my statement. The negation will be today is not Monday, right? Or if your statement is have the word not, then all you need to do is extract the word not out. If I say this is not a red pen, then you say this is a red pen, okay? So if they have the word not, you take it out to negate them. Or if they don't have the word not, you insert the word not in to negate them, okay? So for now, we want to identify, we want to know if I give you a sentence, can you identify if this is a statement or not? Because there are some sentence that is not a statement, okay? So in this case, in example 1, we ask you for each statement, for each sentence, determine if it's a statement or not. I should say for each sentence, determine if it's a statement or not. And if it is a statement, form its negation. So the first sentence, we have a global warming is a threat to the environment. So as you can see, this can be a true sentence or true statement or a false statement, right? This depends on what you believe in, right? So in this case, you can see that this can be either true or false. So this sentence is a statement. And if this is a statement, how can we negate this thing here? Well, to negate this thing here, very easy. All we see that we don't have the word not. So to negate this thing here, all we need to do is insert in the word not, which is global warming is not a threat to the environment, right? So that's all there is for now. That's all there is to negate a statement. First, identify if a given sentence is a statement or not. And if it's a statement, we want to negate them. So B, what is the Wi-Fi password? So as you can see, this is not a statement. This sentence is not a statement. Why is not a statement? Because it's a question, right? It's not a true or false because it doesn't have that variety of true or false sentence, right? It's just a question, right? So if it's a question, it's not a statement, ladies and gentlemen. And that's why not every sentence is a statement, okay? And similarly, this book is not about trading stock. And as you can see, we know that again, if it is, then it's true. If it's not, it's true. If it is, then it's a false statement. So this is a statement. And if this is a statement, do you agree that we have the word not? How do we negate them? Well, if there's the word not in it, all we need to do is take out the word not, right? All we need to do is take this word not out. And if we take the word not out, then my negation, the negation will be this book is about trading stocks, right? So again, the idea here is if you look at this item here, we have two more sentences. Read page 11 to 36 in your books. As you can see, this is not a statement. Why is not a statement? Because it's a command. Right? A command is not a statement because, again, it's not a true or false sentence, okay? And vice versa, man, that's hurt, which is this is not a statement because it's an exclamation, right? So again, there are this three items, which is a command, explanation, or a question. Those are not a statement. Your statement can only be a sentence that contains one central idea, and that is a simple statement, okay? So first of all, question on how to different the sentence that is not a statement versus a sentence is a statement. For now, that's all we ask you is if we give you any English sentence and all this thing here, one thing about logic is we deal with a lot of English, okay? And if you look at this thing here, there's no math involved. For this particular chapter, you don't have any calculation at all. Okay, so it's a lot of memorization, ladies and gentlemen, for this 3 or chapter 3. Okay, and let's take a look at the compound statement. So just like the name, compound statement is basically you form a sentence by joining two simple statements together. And for us to make it a little bit easy, we only have 4 connectors. Right? For our 4 connector, we only have the word and, which is the same word and before, the word and, the word or, the word if, something, then something, and the word if and only if. Those are only our 4 connector. Okay, so the first thing you need to know is, again, we have a statement, we have some sentence, and in order to be a statement, that sentence has to be either be true or false at one time. It cannot be both. And after you verify that it's a statement, we can negate them if a simple statement. For now, we won't negate a compound statement. We will negate a compound statement later. But for now, we know that in order to be a compound statement, your statement needs to include one of these 4 items. It can include more than one, but again, at least one. Okay, and there are a specific name for each of this connector. And you guys, on top of everything, you guys need to remember the name, which is, again, the and connector, we call this a conjunction. A or connector, we call this a disjunction. The if and then, if something, then something, we call it a conditional statement. And the if and only if, we call this a biconditional statement. And ladies and gentlemen, this is all that you have in chapter 3. The negation, the and statement, the or statement, the if and then statement, or a if and only if statement. And I want to point out that the if and only if, the or and the and, they always go in between the 2 simple statements. The only one that split the 2 simple statements out is the if, the first item, then the second item. That's the only thing that you start if something, then something else, which is your conditional statement. If something happened, then this is the result. A biconditional statement is if and only if together, okay? So again, if you did, and I think I saw a few of you guys did chapter 3 homework or chapter 3 pi, the first thing is they ask you to identify if it's a statement, negate a statement. And further on, they ask you, can you identify if it's a compound statement and then name the compound statement, which is, let's take a look at this example here. So this example, I ask you to classify each statement as a simple statement or a compound statement. And then I go in, and again, if it's a simple statement, you have to form the negation of the statement. If it's a compound statement, you have to state what is the connector that we're using. Is it a conjunction, a disjunction, a conditional statement, or a biconditional statement? So again, you might need to keep this in handy, which is, again, the and is conjunction or is disjunction. The biconditional statement is if and only if, and the if and then the conditional statement. So if you look at this question, or if you look at A, we can see that this is the connector we have. You don't see the and, but and the reason I write it this way to show you that you only either see the and, the or the if and only if. You will never see if something and only if another thing. The if and only if have to go together. This item here, as you can see, we have one subject, one item here, I will get wet, right? That's one statement, I will get wet. Again, if I get wet, it's true statement. I don't get wet is a false statement. The second statement is it is raining outside. Again, if it's raining outside, it's a true statement. If it's not raining outside, it's a false statement. So we can see that they connect. What are we connect? We connect these two statements together. So looking at this thing here, you say, well, what is the connector? Well, the connector is the if. And if it's the connector, or if we have multiple statements, we can see that this is a compound statement, right? It's a compound statement. And if it's a compound statement, what is the name of this compound statement? Well, it's the if connector. And since it's the if connector, then it's a if and then connector, which is a conditional statement. This thing here is basically, you can rewrite this as in, if it is raining outside, then I will get wet, right? And we will mention more about this if and then statement. The conditional statement, I think, is the confusing one that you will see in your homework or on the quiz. And let's try B. My car is not clean. Is this a compound statement or a simple statement?
Is it simple?
Simple.
Simple, right? It doesn't have multiple items. It's only one item, which is your car is a subject. And again, it's clean, right? Which is a simple statement. And if it's a simple statement, how can we negate this? Well, because they have the word not, the negation, all you need to do is take it out, which is my car is clean, okay? And that's, right now, that's all there is. The negation of a simple statement is that easy. If they have the word not, we take it out. If they don't have the word not, we put it in, okay? And similarly, I only study, right? I only study if and only if the test is tomorrow. So looking at this thing here, again, you can see there are two items. And if you recognize that this is my connector, if you recognize that this is your connector, then you see that this is a compound statement. And if this is a compound statement, which is they connect two items, they connect I only study, right? Or the test is tomorrow. And again, looking at this thing here, we can see clearly we have our Chi-Chi on this side, which is because it's an if and only if, we know that this is a biconditional statement. So if you did your homework or if you work on your pie, you can see that this is your relative question, relative easy question. And 3.1 is very relatively easy. And chapter 3 is like similar to chapter 2. It's a lot of definition or notation that you have to remember. And if you can remember the notation and the name of each notation, chapter 3 will be very doable. Yesterday was the deadline to take the test. Again, you can see that this is a simple statement because they don't have anything other than test, right? Again, simple statement, yesterday was the deadline to take the test. And if this is the simple statement, how can we negate it? Well, yesterday was not the deadline to take the test, okay? So in the sense, similarly, lastly, my jacket is both warm and light. Looking at this thing here, is this a simple or a compound statement? And hopefully you guys see is a compound statement.
The
compound, right? They compound the warm and the light, which is basically my jacket is warm and my jacket is light. So it's a compound statement, which is a compound. They connect it with the and, which is we can say or we can see that this is a conjunction statement. Okay, and that for now, question on how to determine if it's a simple statement or a compound statement. And for now, we will not negate the compound statement. So don't worry about the negation of compound statement. We will probably negate them next time, but for now, we only negate the simple statement, okay? So let's take a look at what do we do once we identify a compound statement, once we identify a simple statement. What do we need to do next? Well, one thing about logic, and this is where the math come in. One thing, if believe it or not, math, we try to make things a little bit simpler, a little bit easier. And it might not be in the process, you know, when on the process of you learning, you might not see the simplicity of math, but the goal of math is basically we try to make something simpler. So this is what we have is like your chapter 2, you have to name your set. Like chapter 2, you have to name the capital letter of your set. In logic, we will use P, Q, R, and S to identify a statement. And basically you just say, this is my statement, this is my P statement, this is my Q statement, this is my R statement, or this is my S statement. We will use this 4 letters to identify our statement. And again, our goal is basically this. And your ultimate goal in 3.1 is, can you take an English statement? If I give you an English statement, can you take that English statement and translate it to a symbolic? Or vice versa, if I give you a symbolic, can you translate it back to English? Okay. And again, the reason why we use symbolic is because if we only have P, Q, and R, we don't care about the story or your feeling behind the argument, right? Basically, we left out the bias. We just know that this is my P, this is my Q, this is my R, and it's always the same all the time. We want to have a consistency, okay? So here come the 5 items I mentioned to you guys. So this is a 5 item that you have, which is the negation. The negation, the conjunction, the disjunction, the conditional, and the biconditional statement. So this, you need to remember what is the negation, what is the conjunction, and so on and so forth. But now on top of that, you need to know the symbolic for each one. So if we have a negation, to show the opposite, I should say, the negation is basically the opposite, right? If your statement is true, the negation is false. If your statement is false, the negation is true. So to show the opposite, just think in terms of, this is the tilde sign, it's a squiggly line, just in terms of, think in terms of a negative, right? If we have a positive item to show if it's a negation, we put in the negative, which is the negative is a tilde sign, the squiggly line, okay? The and or a conjunction statement, the negation, not the negation, the symbolic is the caret sign or upside down V. Similar to your intersection, if you remember your intersection of chapter 2, which is the upside down U. So now it's just the upside down V is the and statement. The disjunction or the or, which is your right side V. So every time you see the V, you translate to the word or every time you see the word or, you translate to the V. And that is your objective. And if you see the if and then, which is your conditional statement, the symbolic will be one single arrow to the right, which is if something, then the second thing, if and then. And if you see the if and only if, and if and only if will always stay in the middle of the connector is connect the first item and the second item. The symbolic for the biconditional, the if and only if, will be biconditional, which is bi, which is two arrow, double arrow. So this on top of the name of each of your statement, on top of the name of each statement, now we have to know your symbolic. We have to know if we see this word, the word not, we put in the negation. Or I should say, if you see the opposite of your statement, it's not always the word not. It depends on your statement. So if you see the opposite of your statement, you put in the tilde, the negation, the squiggly line, and so on and so forth, okay? So let's take a look at our typical, or this is what you will see a lot, is you have to know how to translate. And like I mentioned to you guys, you know, the P, the Q, the R, and the S is just basically the name of your statement. So this is my name, my P statement. My P statement is I work late. My Q statement is today is Friday. And as you can see, one thing is for each P and each Q or an R or an S, for each letter, they can only contain one subject. They can only be a simple statement. And that's the good thing is your P will not be I work late and today is Monday, okay? So whatever your P is, they can only be one item. It can be the traffic is heavy. I got stuck in traffic or my car broke down, meaning one item, that's it, okay? So you will never see the word and or the word or, the word if and only if, or the word if and then in the P or the Q statement. So everybody see that I identify, this is what I ask you is, if I give you this sentence, if I give you this sentence here, today is Friday and I work late. If I give you this endless sentence, can you convert this endless statement in symbolic using the P and the Q that I identify? So I have the P, I work late. The Q, today is Friday. So looking at this thing here, wherever you see Friday, everybody see that wherever you see Friday, that is your Q. And what is my connector? My connector is and. So how do we translate this to symbolic? We can see that, again, our cheat sheet come up, right? The first thing is today is Friday. Today is Friday, that is by Q. And the word and, well, what is the symbolic for and? My and is the upside down V, which is, do you see that Q? And what is I work late? Well, I work late is the P. So my statement, my endless statement is today is Friday and I work late. Our goal is we need to convert to this symbolic, which is Q, which is my Q statement right here, upside down V, P, okay? So question with your objective for now, you know, beside identify if it's a simple statement or a compound statement, beside negate the simple statement, now do you see that we need to, furthermore, we need to do this, which is convert from English to symbolic. And ladies and gentlemen, don't worry about your P and your Q. They will give you the P and the Q. Whatever that they want you to translate, they will give you, they will identify the P, the Q, the R, and the S. They will identify the statement for you. You don't, unless they give you later on and you have to identify yourself. But for now, they will identify the P statement, the Q statement, everything for you, okay? So question with number A, how I take this English and convert to this, my answer here. B, I work late if and only if. And again, this is what you want to see, right? This is what you want to ask yourself is, what is my connector? My connector is if and only if, then I can see, well, my connector is if and only if, which is, that is my symbolic. The double arrow is the if and only if. Now, what is the first thing? Do you agree that the first thing is P, right? I work late, which is P. If and only if, which is double arrow. Today is not Friday. Wait a minute. This item right here tell me today is Friday. What is the difference with this thing here? Well, they have the word not. Well, if there's the word not, how can I show that this is the opposite of Q? Well, to show the opposite of Q, do you believe or do you see that, again, I work late, which is my P, if and only if, which is the double arrow. Today is not Friday, which is the opposite of today is Friday, which is to show the opposite, I need to put in the squiggly line Q, which is, if you read this thing here, which is I work late if and only if today is not Friday. And this is the math part, you know. You guys say, well, where's the math come in? Well, this is the math part. We try to make something a little bit simpler, which is you have to write all of this in English. In math, you just write this. And you look at this and you understand what this is saying, okay? So that's our goal. Our goal is how can we take the word, how can we take the English word and convert to a symbolic item. So question here, question in terms of the first item, how did I took this word and change it to this symbolic? Everybody see the idea. Your main objective for 3.1 is how can we identify a statement? And if we got a statement, can we convert to symbolic? Now, if you don't have questions, let's take a look at C. I do not work late, or today is not Friday. Well, we can see, hopefully you guys can see that the word or is my connector. That's the first thing you want to ask yourself is what is your connector, right? So the word or is my connector, which is my connector is the right side V. That's my connector there. So I do not work late. What is related to work late? Well, work late is my P item. My P item is work late. That's work late related, which is the P. But my P say that I work late, but this thing here say I do not work late, which is the opposite of I work late. Everybody see that this C, we have to negate the P and we have to negate the Q because the Q here is also not, right? So to negate them, the symbolic for negation is the squiggly line, which is the negation of P, which is I do not work late, or, which is my connector is the or, today is not Friday, okay? So question with this item here, question in terms of how I have the symbolic. And one thing is the reason, take a look at D, and hopefully you already got to D and E. The reason why I give you D and E is I want to show you guys that D and E is exactly the same idea, okay? And this is the one thing that not confused, but make you guys kind of hesitant. But if you read this thing here, this is what I want you to take on or put a note is anything after the word if. You can see right here, this is the if and then. So we know if and then is this item here. We know that this is a conditional statement and this is a symbolic, which is one single arrow to the right. So that is my if and then statement. So how do we translate the if and then statement? This is what I tell my students is anything follow the word if. Doesn't matter where the word if go. As you can see, D and E is the same. Anything follow the word if. Anything follow the word if, that is the first thing you need to write, okay? So anything follow the word if right here, which is my word if is right here, is today is not Friday. So anything follow the word if, that is the first letter you need to write. So in this case, what is related to Friday? Well, Friday is my Q. My Q is Friday, but my Q is Friday, but this thing is not Friday. So I need to put in the negation of Q, a single error, and the negation of P. So one thing that you will see, the symbolic for D and E is exactly the same. The symbolic for E and D is exactly the same. But the way that they write it in English, you have to ask yourself, because a if and then statement is a conditional statement, and the conditional statement, the breakdown of the conditional statement is something have to happen first, and here come the result, okay? So what is the condition here? The condition is if today is not Friday, so it has to be not Friday. If it's not Friday, what would be the result? Well, the result is I won't work. I will not work late, right? I do not work late, right? Meaning, again, basically, if Friday, then I work late, right? But again, if today is not Friday, then I do not work late. As you can see right here, I do not work late if today is not Friday, meaning same thing go. The first thing have to happen is if today is not Friday, meaning it's got to not be Friday. And once it's Friday, then the result is I do not work late. So for the if and then, the conditional statement, you have to ask yourself, what is the condition? What is the first thing have to happen? And then once you identify the first thing that have to happen, what is the result? So this one here, the careless mistake a lot of students do is they put the negation of P, error, negation of Q, okay? You have to ask yourself, what follow the word if? Whatever follow the word if, come in front of the error. Come first, and then whatever left come behind the error, after the error, okay? So again, before the error, I should say before and after. In front, someone say, oh, this is in front of this error. But again, before the error, whatever after what if come before the error, and whatever left come after the error. If they say it this way, if today is not Friday, then it's easy for you to see. But this is the E, is the part that a lot of students make mistake on Alex. And if you know by now, if you make one mistake, they push you back. So make sure you see that if they write it this way, the translation or the symbolic is the same, okay? Question of this here. Question how to take the word and translate to the symbolic. And this is the math, guys. This is the simplicity of the item, okay? Your goal is how can you maneuver the English to your symbolic? Or vice versa, if you don't have that question, vice versa, how can you take your symbolic? If I give you this symbolic, how can you take this symbolic and translate back to English or on Alex? I think they ask you to put in descriptive item, right? You have to describe the symbolic. So we can see, right? I did not give you the cheat sheet here. Hopefully you remember by now, right? So looking at this item, the first thing you need to ask yourself is what is your connector, right? And hopefully by now you see the upside down V. The upside down V, I thought I'd give you a small cheat sheet up here. But again, hopefully you see that the upside down V is your and statement, right? That is your and statement, which is a conjunction. The conjunction, which is the and statement. So what do they connect? They connect, well, they tell me that to negate the P. So my P is this item. To write it in English, do you see that to write it in English and I need to negate them, meaning to negate this item, I need to take out the word not, right? Negation of P, which is the opposite of P and Q. So how do we write this in English? Well, we need to take the opposite of P and Q. The opposite of P will be I will prepare for the test and I have a good grade. I was prepared, not will. Again, so looking at this thing here, my original P is this. My original P is I was not prepared for the test. Again, if you prepare for a test, this is a false statement. If you was not prepared for a test, it's a true statement. So again, I was not prepared for the test. I have a good grade, right? Each, your P, your Q, they identify for you. So this thing tell you whatever the P is, negate it. Take the opposite of that, which is the opposite of this will be I was prepared for the test. What is my connector? My connector is the and I have a good grade. Okay, so my connector is the and, that's where my and here. And like I mentioned, the and connector is always the and, the or, and the if and then will always be in the middle. And the first item, the second item will be on the side. Now, let's do B, and then I will ask you guys if you have questions. Same thing go for B, right? You ask yourself, what is your connector? My connector here is a if and only if statement. If and only if, which is a biconditional statement. So what are they connecting? They connect my Q if and only if the negation of P. So basically you have to reverse whatever your first item is, you reverse them around, and the only thing you changing is you need to put the if and only if instead of the and, right? So the if and only if, which is the double arrow, that is tell me that I have to put in the if and only if. And what is the first item? The first item is I have a good grade if and only if, which is the double arrow, I was prepared for the test. Or you can say I prepared for the test. One thing is the translation is doesn't matter the verb tense. The verb tense can be past, present, future. The only thing that I did not mention to you guys is when you negate something, like I say, just put in the word not or take it out. Do not change in the subject, okay? Do not say, like I mentioned, today is Monday, and you negate them. Don't negate them and say today is Tuesday, okay? I know that today is Monday is a false statement, and based on today is Tuesday is a true statement, but Monday and Tuesday are different subject. You cannot negate by using a different subject. You have to use the same subject as you have, okay? If you use a different subject, you have a different statement, okay? So again, to negate something for now to be short, that's all you do is you put in the word not. If they don't have it, you take the word not out if they do have it. So anyway, question with A or B? Any question with A or B here? And again, hopefully you guys see, CC. Hopefully you guys see, which is the connection here is the word or, right? What do they connect? They connect the first item, which is what is the first item? The first item is they tell me whatever P is, just write it. And the opposite of Q. And hopefully you guys see I was not prepared for the test, or I did not or do not have a good grade, right? The negation, like did not, if you want to put in past tense, that's fine. Will not, if you want to put in future tense, is fine, or do not is fine. Is not, the tense is not a problem, okay? So again, basically, as you can see, the connector is the or, which is this is my or. And again, the first item, I was not prepared for the test, which is my P statement, or the negation of Q, which is I do not have a good grade, okay? And hopefully D. And like I keep on mentioning to you guys, the and, the if and only if, and the or is always smack in the middle of the two statements. The only thing that split the two items on itself is basically the if and on, the if and then. It's basically you have to type in the if first. You have to type in the if first, and then you have to type in the and. So if and then, which is, give me one. So you have to type in if the first item, then the second item. So if, what is the first item? If the negation of P, which is negation of P is I was not prepared for the test. If I was not prepared for the test, which is the negation will be if I were prepared for the test, then I do not have a good grade. So, you know, I purposely give you guys this thing in terms of make sure that the original statement had the word not, and this thing tell me to take the opposite of this. Therefore, if I were prepared for the test, then the negation of Q, this Q does not have the word not. So the negation is, then I do not have a good grade. So in the sense, this is the one time that you have to start with the connector. This is the one and only time you have to start the statement with the connector, which is if something, then something. You don't have to write this then. Sometimes they don't write the then here. The then is kind of imply. It's like, if this happened, imply this happened. Okay. So sometimes you don't have to write, you won't see the then, or sometimes you see the then, but the connector is the if and then. And question with this 4 item here, how do we took the symbolic and translate to English? And that is your objective for now. If you do your homework, you saw something in this nature, you saw something in this form where you have to write in English, or vice versa, from English right back to symbolic. So earlier I told you guys that we have not negate a compound statement. As you can see, if you block this thing out, we have a compound statement here, P and Q. Okay, so this is the other way. This is the other way to negate a compound statement. The other way is simply, we cannot just put the word not or take the word not out. If we have a compound statement, the easiest way to do is this. The negation is literally say this. The negation is literally say, excuse me, it is not true that whatever I have. Okay, so the negation, if I ask you negation of P or negation of Q, the negation of Q is this. It is not true that I have a good grade. So what does that mean? It's not true that you have a good grade. Well, that's just say that you did not have a good grade, right? Or it is not true that I was not prepared. Well, if it's not true that you were not prepared, meaning you did prepare, right? So in a sense, for a simple statement, we don't write it is not true that blah, 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 right? But if it's a compound statement, the easiest way for now, the easiest way to negate a compound statement is you just say, it is not true, whatever the parenthesis is. Whenever they want you to negate a compound statement, they will always give you a parenthesis. And the parenthesis, like always, don't distribute this thing in. The parenthesis just the same. It is not true. That is the negation. It is not true that, what is P? I was not prepared for the test, and I have a good grade. Meaning, again, you might prepare for a test and you did not have a good grade, or it's not true that this happened. It is not true that both of this thing happened. So it might be one thing or the other, or not both. Okay. So in the sense for now, to be in short, this is what we need to know if we need to compile, if we need to negate a compound statement. We just put it is not true that whatever the result is after. So if they have a conditional statement here, we say it is not true that if I was not prepared for a test, then I have a good grade. If they have the or here, you say it is not true that I would not prepare for a test or I have a good grade. So basically for a compound statement, we put it is not true that the following statement. Okay. So question here in terms of this 5 item. Don't negate, if they ask you to negate a compound statement, don't negate a each single. Okay. Don't negate each P or the Q. You have to negate the whole thing. Yes, go ahead.
And Mr. Tran, that was because we had the parentheses.
Yes.
That's why we use, and that's only when we see the parentheses if it is not true that. That's the only time we use that. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
For now, to be safe, yes. For now, if you have as you can see, A if you can see A and E is the same, but the only thing different is the parenthesis cover the P and the Q, but this one is the negation is only the P, right? It's only illustrate with the P. This one here is illustrate with the whole thing. So to show that it's the whole thing, you have to say it is not true that the whole thing. Okay, so on, yes, to be short right now, if there is a parenthesis and the negation is on the outside of the parenthesis, then you say it is not true. Yes, okay, because none of this thing here have a parenthesis, so the negation is only deal with the P. The negation only deal with the Q. The negation only deal with the P here. So if the parenthesis, the negation is deal with the whole thing. So now to negate the whole thing, we say it is not true that. Okay. So let me get this out of the way too, ladies and gentlemen. Here come, I know it's quite a lot of notation that you guys have to remember, then the terminology, but let me throw this out here. And this is the last thing that you need to remember. Well, I take it back. This is the other most important thing that you need to remember is 3.2, which is the truth table. So now this is where logic come in place, which is now if we say a statement, if we tell you a statement, how do you know if that statement is a true statement or if it's a false statement? How do we know if I say today is Monday and I have to work? If I say that statement, is it that a true statement or a false statement? Okay, that's the idea of 3.2 is we want to know if whatever statement we have, is it a true statement or a false statement? So here come the criteria of a true and false statement. So the criteria for a negation, the negation, do you agree that for any P, for any statement, you have only two choices. You either be a true or a false statement. If today is Monday, that statement can either be true or a false statement. And in that case, that is a false statement. So the negation is this, ladies and gentlemen. The negation is the easiest thing to do. The negation, if you remember, I keep on saying the negation is the opposite. And that's what the negation is. If the statement, if you take one look at one item at a time, don't look at the whole thing. So if your statement is true, whatever my P is, my P can be today is Monday, like I say. If your statement is true, the negation have to be false. If your statement is false, then the negation have to be true, which is the opposite. So again, my statement today is Monday is false. The negation today is not Monday will be true. Okay, so the negation is very easy for any statement. Doesn't matter what statement you have. For any individual statement, for any simple statement, the negation is the opposite. If it's true, the negation is false. If it's false, the negation is true. Now, for a compound statement, this is for a simple statement, right? For a simple statement, you have this item right here, which is you have your statement will be either be true, your statement will be either true or false. You have only two outcomes. That's it. If a simple statement. What about a compound statement? Well, a compound statement, this is your fix, or this is the combination of your compound statement. And in Alex, it's good for you in terms that you don't really need to remember this combination. In Alex, they give you this combination. As you can see, this is the only four combination of any compound statement you have. You can either have both true, one false, one false, one true, and both false. The first item true, the second item false, first item false, the second item true. Meaning there is no other true and false combination you can get beside this false, this four item. Okay, so if you have a compound of two simple statement compound together, right? This is the combination you have. Okay, so again, let's take a look at the first thing you need to remember is this, which is the negation. Now, the second thing you need to remember, or this is the criteria for the conjunction. What is the conjunction statement? The conjunction statement is the and criteria. And what is the AND criteria, or what the AND statement? The AND statement is the upside down V, which is, again, this is your conjunction. So the book tell you this item here. We can see that this is my P. My P is, I did it wrong. My P is true, true, false, false. My Q is true, false, true, false. And as you can see, the book tell you that the only time that the conjunction, the AND statement is true is when both of them are true. That's the only time that the AND statement, the conjunction is true, is when the first item is true and the second item is true. Everywhere else is false, okay? So if you remember, I say today is Monday and I have to work. As you can see, that will be a false statement because, yeah, false, today is not Monday, right? I say today is Monday, but that is a false statement. Today is not Monday. I have to go work, which is I'm working right now, which is today is Monday and I have to go to work, which is that is a false statement. The result is a false statement. So as you can see, as long as one item is false, the result for the AND statement is false. The AND statement, the only time it's true is when both of them are true. Everywhere else is false. So on top of the notation, on top of the name and the notation, you have to now know when is your statement true, or when is your statement a false statement for a conjunction, okay? And vice versa, the disjunction. The disjunction, which is the OR statement, the OR statement tell you that the only time that is false is when both of them are false. So if we remember, or if this is our notation, or not our notation, this is our combination. The P is true, 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 false, false. The Q is true, false, true, false. And ladies and gentlemen, this is a fixed truth table. This will always be the same for P and always be the same for Q. We don't interchange P and Q. P and Q will always be true, true, false, false for P, true, false for Q, okay? Now, this is what they tell you is doesn't matter as long as one of them is true, the OR statement is true. The only time the OR statement is false is when both of them are false. If both of them are not false, the result is true. So again, this is what the book tells you is the only time the AND statement is up here. The only time the AND statement, the conjunction is true, is both of them are true. The only time the OR statement is false when both of them are false, okay? So the disjunction, when both of them are false, is false. Everywhere else is true. For the conjunction, when both of them are true, is true, is false everywhere else, okay? So that's what the book tells you. That's how, you know, if you want to remember that way, you can remember it. But like I mentioned in the beginning, chapter 3 is a lot of memorization. It's a lot of memorization. You have to remember the name. You have to remember the notation. And on top of that, you have to remember each notation, when it's true or when this is false, okay? Let me skip this one for now. Let me do this one here. It's easier, and I'll go back to the condition, and then we're done for the day. Biconditional statement. The biconditional statement, this is what you have is the only time for the biconditional statement to be true. The only time the biconditional statement to be true is when they both have the same value. They both have to be true or they both have to be false. So whenever they are the same, so think in terms of biconditional, bi meaning two, double arrow, biconditional statement meaning you have two arrow, and when you have two arrow, you need two of the same, okay? So they only be true if they have the same value. If they have the same T, the result is true. If they have the same false value, the result is true. So the only time for a biconditional statement to be true is when they have the same value. It will be false if they have opposite value. Okay. So you look at that. If you look at this item, the biconditional statement, the and statement, and the or statement, if you look at those three, conjunction, disjunction, and biconditional statement, respectively, the order doesn't matter, right? You haven't heard me say anything about the order. You just hear me say that for the conjunction, which is the and statement, the only time it's true is when both of them is true. The disjunction, which is the or statement, the only time that is false is when both of them are false. The biconditional statement, which is double error, which is the only time it's true, is when they have the same value, when they have two of the same, two of the same t, the result is true. Two of the same f, the result is true. If they don't have the same, it's false. So here come the hardest one. I don't know why it's the hardest one. I think it's the hardest one to remember is this item here. The conditional statement. So the conditional statement is this. As I mentioned, the conditional is something have to happen first, which is the first thing here. Whatever before the error happen first, whatever after error is the result. Or the first item is the antecedent, and the second item is the consequence. So one thing is the conditional statement is very unique. If the condition doesn't met, then the result doesn't matter. Okay, so this is one thing that I tell my student is this is the one and only time the order matter. Whatever comes first, you have to look at first. Whatever comes second, you look at second. Okay, so how do we determine this thing here? This is the only time that the conditional statement is false. The only time the conditional statement is false is the first item is true, imply the second item is false. Meaning the first item is true and the second item is false. This is the one and only time that the whole thing is false. If it's true, nothing happened. If the first thing is false, you say, wait a minute, what happened if the first thing is false? Well, if the first thing is false, the condition did not met. And if the condition doesn't met, it doesn't matter, it's not justify the consequence. Okay, so for now, just remember that if it's not in this sequence, if it's not for the error, for the single error, for the if and then, for the if and then, for the single error, if it's not in this sequence, if it's not in this sequence, right? Oh, why did my name is there? If it's not in this sequence, the first item error the second item. Meaning again, if it's not first T and second F, then it's true. The only time that is false is the first thing is T and error, the second one is false. Okay, this is the one and only time that the conditional statement is false. So for now, I know today is a lot of symbolic and a lot of information to inhale and try to dissect, try to analyze. So let's stop here for today. I know I kind of rushed through. I want to get the criteria out of the way because this is what we're going to do next time. We will do a lot of this thing here, which is your typical question will have something like this, which is P and negation of Q. They will ask you to construct the truth table for this item, which is if you read this thing here, and that's where the challenge come in, right? You have to know what this is, what symbolic is this, and what symbolic is this, which is P and negation of Q. Doesn't matter what P, doesn't matter what Q. P can be today is Sunday and I did not sleep, right? It can be whatever they want to be, but now they want to know if this statement, when does this statement is a true or when does this statement is a false statement, okay? So that's our objective for next time, okay? For today, let me ask you guys any question on any of the thing we did.